Let's talk about love and marriage, the way that God intended. Life experience, here we share it. The No Fruit Podcast. Tune in from any platform. No Fruit Podcast. Will help your spirit transform.
Greetings, everyone.
Hello.
How are y'all doing today? You know, we have a very interesting series coming up right now. And it's based off of some of the things I've been seeing on YouTube. First, we did discuss in previous episodes, you know, what's been my go-to video when I'm trying to decompress. And unfortunately, I don't know if I'm decompressing or just want the drama by looking at these court shows, right?
Okay.
I've been looking at a lot of the court shows, but in the meantime, I've been looking at some of these relationship things or whatever's been going on. People wanting relationships and, you know, hey, there's no good men out there, there's no good women out there, yada, 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 yada stuff, right? And so it just seemed like a lot of people are complaining in some of this.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, I've been countering that with looking at some interviews with people that have been married for some time.
Okay.
And so one of them that Kaf and I, we've been looking at this one gentleman and his wife. They've been doing some shows lately, being one has been DeVal and Kay.
Right.
We've been looking at some of this, or Kadeen. She goes by Kadeen. So we've been looking at them here and there, and then there's another little young couple that's I want to say, I can't remember where they were, but they just bought 21 acres of land, you know, young or whatever else, you know. I can't remember who they are, but ultimately, and these are the ones that we've been looking at for some time, which has been Kev on stage and Mrs. Kev on stage being Melissa. And so we look at some of their counterparts being Angel, that chick Angel, and Marcus.
Yes. You
know, so we kind of bond with them, I guess, because we're all relatively in the same age bracket, right? We're well, at least I don't know how old Angel and Marcus are, but I know that we're older than Kevin and Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but in looking at their interview that they just had, that we just finished watching, there's a lot of things that are really, really similar between us and them. And, you know, in this space of people talking about relationships or whatever, I have to say this, but relationships are hard.
They are.
Relationships are hard. And I don't know if people understand and or are patient enough to understand what it takes to not just be in one, but to nurture it and to grow within it and allow people that space to get to that point themselves. And so one of the things that really, really gravitated me to them, their story, and one to like, yo, Kyle, like, we need to talk about this. They're talking about how one was a dreamer and one was the stability. And for me, that was like, that's Kaf and I.
Right.
That's Kaf and I. And so we've had a lot of challenges, you know, over the years because of that. I don't know what to say or how to explain it to someone, because everybody's story is different.
Yes.
Everybody's journey is different. But I can tell you that for us, we've had a lot of challenges. I mean, a lot of challenges over the years. And so because I'm the dreamer, I did not always take Kafa's position of support the way she would give it I didn't understand it. And so,
You didn't see it as support.
right.
A lot of times I think that, and then my desire for stability was not present because of the dreams. So, again, one of the things you said when you proposed, I guess, or around that time was, Kaf, you growing up, you moved around a whole lot. You didn't have stability. I want to be the one that provides you with that. So, here we are 20 years later and you're a dreamer and that stability is not there. And if I'm, so like you're saying, hey, Kaf, you're the one providing the stability. So, just what do we need? How do we provide that for one another? How do we provide our own needs? And how do we communicate that? And I think that was a hard part. I think that's where the struggle was a little bit with us. It's just because we did get married, I say a little younger, that we weren't quite sure what it was that we needed and how to communicate what we needed at that particular time, as well as, here we are 20 years later. I think we have grown into ourselves and we know how to communicate that better. I think we know ourselves better and we know each other better. And are able to give each other what one other needs, as well as what we need for ourselves, in ourselves.
And see, I think to your point, when we take a look at how old we were, again, I'm 24, you're 26, and it almost feels like hindsight. It almost feels like we married in a rush. Hindsight. Because for those of you who don't really know our story, we were dating, 2-3 years prior to us getting married. And then when we had gotten married, that January, I just started working full-time, permanently, because I was off and on prior to. Kafa moves. She bought a house. I bought a car in April. We got married in September. Then the following July, our first child comes, right? So what happened is that our place of stability, it was, I think we were just too happy because life was changing. Opportunities were coming about. And to be honest, like once I got a car, it felt like life changed 100%, so, now that didn't mean I didn't have a car beforehand, but that's a whole nother story. Like we could talk about that first car. Right. But, but when, but when we had gotten the car and it just felt like, and then you being in the house because your living, space at that prior to that, you weren't on your own or anything like that. I was living with somebody, you living with somebody, being our aunt and our mother, respectively. So then once someone had gotten some freedom, it's like, oh, wow, this is what freedom is like? This is what real dating is like as adults?
When we first started dating, I had my own apartment, so I had that freedom. We had that freedom, but...
you had a roommate, though, technically.
Yeah.
So... and then even with that, that was only for a month, in all honesty, right? So, but then once, because we were dating, you did get the house or whatever else. I'm working, we're like, wow, like, we can make this thing happen. Like, we good. And then now all of a sudden, we're married, parents, whatever, so you and your stability space. I mean, I didn't understand bills and all that type of stuff. I was jacking crap up, in all honesty, right? And because of the idea of being a man at a house or whatever else, it was, I mean, that was a struggle unto itself, and so what does that really mean? What did that look like or whatever else, especially when you don't have that in front of you?
An example of it. Right.
So how do you figure that part out? So I think that as we...
How did you figure it out?
How did I?
Yeah.
Life experiences, understanding that, hey, you know what? Because I mean, we've been married for 23 years, and I didn't figure out the whole man in the house thing until, 22.5.
I think it was a little before then, but
But, and I'm saying that because how many times have I or could I have said, I apologize, I'm sorry, I'm failing, what does that look like and feel like? And sometimes the ego, and you and I have been talking about this for a while.
yes.
Sometimes the ego can kind of get in the way and be like, you can't do that. You can't say that. And then all the outside voices, whatever people got to say, think, or whatever else, like sometimes that gets in the way. So, and so, going back to the whole Kev and Melissa thing,
Yes.
because I'm more of the dreamer, Kafa's more of the stability, and their story is very similar. Kev is the dreamer.
Right.
And Melissa is the stability person. So, now I'm not as extreme as Kev says, like, yo, we just going to go ahead and move to LA and we just, walk in the door or whatever else. There are some things where, in all honesty, I'm not so much of a dreamer as if I walk into the room, things are just going to fall in my lap. Like, because I am an undercover pessimist.
Right.
in all honesty, so I could walk into the room and something could be presented to me.
Yeah.
But I'm going to analyze it and overanalyze it. And then next thing you know, the opportunity is gone. Or I have responded in a way that's so crazy that it doesn't work for us.
Mm.
So, I think that's some of the things that how we are similar to them to some degree.
Right.
And how some of the things that, I've had to grow, and mature and experience and understand, like, hey, everybody's not out to get me. And
I'm not out to get you, and I think that's part of it is that as the interview that we were just watching, that Kevin thought that Melissa was, against him, and the person that was interviewing them also was in a relationship, and he had thought that his significant other was against him and not vibing for him and not supportive because of the questions, because of, well, hey, great, $1 million house, but how are we going to get it? It's great to have that dream. But I think the reality is sometimes where Maurice thought I was against him of, well, babe, you only got $20 in the bank. Like, $1 million house is great, but how are we going to get there?
Right.
And as cop, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And I mean, literally, that's all he was saying is I'm doing this and I'm doing this, and never, well, what is this and what is that? Well, I'm down and I'm, so it's just, for me, being the numbers person, being, again, the stability person, it's just like, well, draw me the picture. And I know Maurice is also a thinker, so he does think things through, and he's a researcher, so he'll look at things, but he kind of still is dreaming of,
they're fighting.
It's going to work, but, well, what are the steps to get there? So he may start with step 1 and 2 and then dream and say, oh, yeah, we're going to get there. And then I'm just puzzled, like, well, how do we get there? And what is it going to cost? And what is it, going to mean for our family? And what is it going to mean for us? And what is it, all of those things, like let's think it through. I'm with you, if you have a path, and even if you don't, like, hey, all right, you say we're going to get it. All right, I'm there. Now I can't take action because I don't know what steps to take.
Right.
But I'm supporting you. You say we're moving into $1 million house. All right, fine. In my mind, it's like, I know it's not happening tomorrow because I know we still only got $20 in the bank.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, unless you got a dear great aunt, somewhere that's going to, fall off the face of the earth, and then the $1 million plus, because that's the other thing, I'm that reality person, like, all right, great $1 million house, but that means we need multi-millions in order to maintain it.
Right.
Because you're not going to be $1 million house and I'm out here cutting the grass and myself, and all the other neighbors have lawn care services and they have a pool guy. Like, no, I'm not going to pour I didn't want to live house poor, is what I always would say. So I don't want to live in $1 million house and we don't have electricity. That type of stuff. Like, well, we driving up to a $1 million house, but it ain't nothing, no food in the cupboards.
Right.
So those are just the things that I would like. Well, hey, how do we get there? How do we maintain it? Once we're there, like. And one day I sat with Maurice and we went over, like, all right, $1 million house, because we went to an open house, and I said, okay, $1 million house. What's that electricity bill going to be? It's got a pool. What's that bill going to be? It has grass and trees, a whole lot of trees. Who's going to maintain those trees? The trees we had, we didn't maintain.
Right.
Well, I tried, but
right.
All of those things, like, what does all of that add up to be? Now, if you had to hire somebody for all of that, or if you had to go out and buy a John Deere, ride-on machine, what's that like? And then what does all of that care equal out to be? And what are those monthly expenses, those annual expenses? What does that equal? Because you can't just have $1 million house.
And see, I think what changed for those of us that are dreamers, right? Sometimes you need to walk through it, right? And so when you walk through it, I don't care if it's not the exact thing, but maybe a version of it.
Right.
So now, mind you, this house that Kaf was talking about, I have been there twice. One time it was just my son and I, or our son and I, and then everybody, daughter, wife, everybody. And so I was really, really excited the first time, because in all reality, I had not been in an actual house that price was $1 million.
Yes.
I've been outside of a few, but I've never been inside. Some that might have been 800, 900, but none that price tag was $1 million, or at least this one was, price tag was $2 million, to be honest. So, and so looking at what it, as Kyle was putting it, like, hey, what is it going to cost? All these rooms, fireplaces, and it had a as they call a carriage house on the same property. That had a 3-4 car garage, and it had a whole entertainment space above it. It was like, and like she's mentioned about the pool and the hot tub, and like, it was nice. It was really, really nice. But as a dreamer, are we able to really put it together 100%? So so when it's time to answer those questions that Kafa had, I might have fallen a little short. And on top of that, not understanding that she wasn't necessarily saying no to the dream. She was just saying how we really can make this happen. Because here's the reality, what I didn't understand too. She has a very similar dream. It doesn't have to be always $2 million, but but a nice home with grass around it, a nice backyard or whatever. So the dream is not necessary to where mine might be, but it's similar. And so because of what my thought was, hey, she's not dreaming the same dream I have or whatever else, so she's against me. Well, no, Maurice is just a different version of it.
Well, the questions I had made you feel as though I was against you.
Right.
But again, me being stability is like, all right, your dream is to get it. My dream is to stabilize it and maintain it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's just where we were. Like, again, as Maurice is saying, it can be the same thing. It's just that we're coming at things and looking at them differently.
Right.
You know, he's looking at it without glasses and I'm looking at it with glasses or vice versa. You know what I mean? So we're looking at the same thing, but somebody's looking at it a little bit closer or from a different angle than the other. And I think we learned a lot, you know, from that podcast that like, hey, we're not the only ones that are going through this, you know, and knowing that we're yin and yang and it's okay. Like it makes us whole, you know, that Maurice, you know, to dream of a 30-acre property is great, but just getting it is just one part of the battle. You know what I mean? And then, because there's other parts, like how do you get to the point to be able to obtain it?
Right.
And then once you obtain it, how do you keep it?
Right.
You know, especially if you're talking legacy and family wealth and, you know, generational wealth and all those things. Like, well, then you want to maintain it. You don't just want to check off the box and say, hey, I had it. And then that's it. Your kids don't know nothing about it. Your grandkids, because you had it and it is gone because you couldn't sustain it.
All right. So let's go backwards for a moment.
Backwards.
So let's understand, because this is where, again, growth comes in. And you have to understand what is your true background, right?
Right.
What people are feeding into you.
Where your roots are.
And so some of that comes from the home that you might have grown up in. And those that are in and around it. So when you are in an atmosphere that actually comes from a place of fear, in my opinion, where everybody is questioning the next person. They're not sure of the next person, whether it's a family member or friends or an adversary. Like, you know, so it just felt like from my family perspective, everything was questioned. Nothing was really supported per se. And everything was from a real negative perspective. And then as you start to mature and you have your own experiences, you realize that a lot of things were coming up because of the way they were protecting themselves. They were coming from a place of fear.
Right.
And so...
and I could say, you know, likewise, I think maybe some of my questions are also from that same space of fear. You know, hey, how are we going to stabilize this? How are we going to maintain this? Because I'm fearful of losing it. Again, like you said, you know, background, yes. Have I come from a background where we moved every year?
Right.
And that was not always of choice?
Right.
You know, so yes, when you say, babe, I want to move out in the middle of the country. So one, I get those court stories that you're looking at, but they done killed the whole family out in the middle of the nowhere. I'm like, he gonna move me out there. He gonna kill me, y'all. I'm gonna scream and nobody's gonna hear me because the closest house is, you know, 30 miles away. That, you know, as well as, like I said, you know, my personal fears of growing up and not having that stability.
Right.
So to say, yes, we're going to move to this, and then I'm not sure how we're going to sustain it is always, you know, why I ask, you know, might be the root of why I ask some of the questions
and
outside of, like, again, because I look at numbers and do finance every day.
But see, I think also when it comes down to that, you can get lost in the question and feel as though the person's not supporting you.
Right.
And then because the question is being asked and you take it personal, you don't take the place. You don't take it from the place where that person's coming from and or experience. A lot of times, you take it for the moment and not for the whole. You know, so yes, so yeah, you have to take a step back and be like, all right, you know, Kav, you're asking us because of what? Why? And that took some time to understand.
Right.
You know,
and it goes both ways, because we all know you're a man of many, 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 many questions. So you do ask a lot of questions of me, of our kids, or whatever. And myself as well. I would take it and like think that you're not being supportive, that you are questioning me and my judgment and my thought. So I would then deflect and say, okay, I don't have to do it, or I won't move forward with it, that type of a thing, because of the question.
Mm-hmm.
So, it took a while, it took a lot of prayer. Again, some podcast or something I probably listened to, and they were like, no, your husband is, being supportive. He's trying to lead and to guide, because that's what his role is, So then when I heard that, then it's like, okay, he's asking this question so that he can lead and guide. He's, helping me through the process. He's helping so that he understands the process a little bit better. So I'm receiving the questions recently. As Marie said, hey, we've been married 23 years and it took 22 to get to this point. Where I see the questions differently. I can respect the questions differently. And I'm learning how to navigate through them and provide answers a little bit better, I hope. And then likewise, when I ask Marie's questions about, hey, what's going on tomorrow and next week, not 20 years from now, I think he's, able to move forward with that. And we can have a better conversation and be better at communicating one with another. So, yeah, I think we're getting better.
I think so too. I think some of this, though, and again, we're talking about this whole transformation, I guess, that we're going through, and understanding. Some people might say roles. I look at it as how I could say roles, but roles of being supportive, right? Some people might say, "Oh, the man in the house, the lady, whatever," but we both have to be supportive of one of another, So, so I had to understand that in order for me to be quote unquote the man of the house, the head of the house, or whatever it might be, what does that need to look like in order for all of us to flourish? Not just me, not just Kafa, but the kids, the cat, whatever, right? So how can all of us flourish and be successful? The one thing I have to say is that not being so critical on my end, not being so critical, and speak more life than not. And understanding, like for an example, I had Kafa and I, we just talked about, where you are working currently, right? And we're trying to understand whether or not, like how she feels in her position. So we are talking about it, we're dissecting it or whatever else. Instead of, because in the past, I might have said, well, you're not happy. I'm not saying that she's not, but I would say, because I would take anything that might be where she might feel a little off about as her being totally unhappy. Leave that job. They suckers. Like, all that type of stuff.
Versus, or it could have been just the same. Like last week, I think I got stuck in traffic twice. You know what I mean? And I, it's like, I'm stuck on 95 and it was an accident, and he's like, it's taking you more than an hour to get home. It's not worth it, that type of thing. So it's just like those little things. Whenever I complain, Maurice is my protector. He's my savior. Like he comes in and he's like, you don't have to deal with this, type of a thing. So, so likewise to what he's saying, like whenever I come in and express my issues, he is the one that comes and says, well, you can make a choice. Like you don't have to deal with this. Or you can deal with it and, know that I'm here and being supportive of you. So it's just, those ways that he provides support.
But in that, in addition to that, I should say, in understanding the support, yes, I could say, all right, you don't need to take it or whatever else, but understand what else is really going on. See, I think that there's some of these things that's going on. This goes for all of us. What is the test?
Right.
What, and for those of us that are churchy, how does God get the glory out of this? How, are we going to be able to say, what, God, you brought us through, when we say, God, you brought us a mighty long way,
right.
Whatever it is, how, what happens in those situations. So instead of just totally complain about it because a lot of times we got to get it off our chest.
Yeah.
Right. We got to get it off. But as we're getting it off and now we're settling down, instead of staying in that hype space that where I might have been in the past, you know, now I'm all right, Kafa. Let's think about this logically now. What's going on? How do you really feel? How do they really feel? What is the atmosphere of your job? Like you know, and I have to say I have to shout out, you know, me taking these classes right now because because they're really making me, and which is what Kafa said. I'm analyzing the whole thing. So now I'm taking these classes that's pushing the crap out of me. Because if I would have taken, I'm gonna be honest with you too. I gotta share this. If I would have taken these classes at 18, 19, 20 years old, I would not be able to appreciate my experiences and taking them now.
Right.
Because now I can understand where I've been and what someone might have been trying to do. Now I know how to move CG or whatever it might be. Like, what culture do I want my company to be when it's time for me to hire employees and things like that. So I get
So by CG you mean Chisholm Group?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
LLC.
Group, yes.
Because I was like,
sorry.
does everybody know what he's talking about?
I'm sorry about that. You know, or when it's time for me to go speak, you know, I can not only speak from a past experience, but I also could speak from an educated experience too.
Correct.
You know, so I have to say that now that I've been in school and been doing X, Y, and Z and all this other type of stuff. Now when I talk to Kafa, I can really say to her from a place of a student, because now I'm trying to put my student stuff in the works.
But the funny thing is, you've been a student the majority of our relationship. You've been taking a class somewhere.
I mean,
you know,
that's right, but
you know. So, and I'm just saying that because, as you said, hey, if I would have taken this management class when I was 26, 27, you wouldn't have been able to appreciate it the way you're appreciating it now. And again, that's because you've had these experiences.
Right.
You were taking classes, you know, back in the 20s, when you were 20s, you were taking computer classes and things like that. It wasn't necessarily management classes, but because now you've had more management experience, you've had more nonprofit, you know, community-based organization experience. Like, so you kind of seen both the corporate side as well as the nonprofit community-based side.
Right.
So when you sit in class, you're like, man, if they just would have only known this, we could have moved the company forward, or we could have done this differently. But because you have your own company, so you're able to implement what you're learning into that, and you're able to share that information on That Will Never Work podcast, where you
plug
where you provide information to those who are in an entrepreneurial space, and you encourage them. So that information that you have from your own journey, as well as what you're learning in school, you're able to provide there on that platform. So applause to you for what you're doing over there. But we're happy to have you here too on the No Fruit podcast.
So those of you who don't know, which is why we're going down this rabbit hole, because we spoke about nominations of me getting an award, right? Mm-hmm. So you'll understand a little later on, maybe another episode, what the outcome was of that. And now if you follow me on social media, you would know already, right? But for those of you who don't know, we'll talk about this process. So we're talking about, we're going down this rabbit hole of
It's not
support.
a rabbit hole.
It is a rabbit hole
because down a path.
Okay, so this path, right? We're going down this road of talking about support, because I would not have gotten to where I am today if I did not understand the type of support I was receiving, in all honesty, that I really needed. I thought I needed something else. Mm-hmm. I thought I wanted something else, not understanding that the rock that I have is more precious than anything I thought of or I could have even imagined.
Making me blush.
So she's not blushing. She just has on a red hoodie. She does. She has on a red hoodie.
Okay.
You know,
that doesn't mean I'm not blushing.
So all right. So let me explain y'all this. not only does she have on a red hoodie, but our little LED lights are red. Her headphones are black and red. And so there's red like throughout the room. So there's no way. And on top of that, I can't tell because my audio interface and my keyboard, I have red literally everywhere. It's white, black, and red. I don't know why we just like this color scheme. It just keeps defaulting to this.
The blood of Jesus.
Gosh. Oh, gosh.
Oh, goodness. There you go.
The outburst. Thank y'all for listening today.
Yes, thank you very much.
So we would like
support
for y'all
us.
Continue to support. And you will hear part 2 of this very shortly.
Very well.
Thank y'all for listening.
This week's episode has come to an end. But the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.